Always something else with this White House. This is wild. This is wild. And y'all don't know. Maryland Governor Wes Moore says he was uninvited from the National Governors Association bipartisan dinner at the White House. Not couldn't attend, not scheduled conflict, uninvited. This is a decades-long tradition. Every year, governors from at least 50 states, Republican and Democrat, come together during the winter conference. They talk about education, disaster relief, state issues, federal cooperation, real work. And traditionally, the president hosts them at the White House. That's how it's always been until now. This week, President Trump announced the weekend would only include Republican governors. Only Republicans. Let that sink in. This wasn't just one person being quietly left out. This was a decision to turn a bipartisan tradition into a partisan event. And yes, the nation's only black governor was one of the people disinvited. Wes Moore didn't overreact. He didn't scream racism. He said something very measured. He said, as the only black governor in the country, he can't ignore the added weight of being singled out, whether that was the intent or not. That's not dramatic. That's honest. And here's the part that should have bothered people across the board. Moore wasn't just any governor attending. His peers, Democrats and Republicans, selected him to serve as vice chair of the National Governors Association. That means other governors trust him, respect him, value his leadership. And yet the White House decided he and other Democrats like Colorado Governor Gerard Polis weren't welcome at the dinner. What message does this send? Because this isn't about whether you like Westmoreland or not. This is not about whether you agree with his policies or not. This is about the office of the presidency choosing to shrink the room instead of expanding it. The acting CEO of the National Governors Association said this decision undermines federal-state collaboration. Undermines it. And they're right. These meetings aren't social hour. They're about coordination. When hurricanes hit, when disasters strike, when federal funding decisions are made, states and the federal government have to work together. That's not optional. That's basic governance. So when you take a bipartisan tradition and turn it into a party-only gathering, you're not just excluding people socially. You're signaling that cooperation now depends on party loyalty. That is dangerous territory. The White House isn't supposed to be a red team clubhouse. It belongs to the entire country, every state, every governor, every voter. You don't get to claim you're leading the United States while acting like you're leading a political rally for the Republicans only. And let's be clear. When Moore said there's added weight to this as the only black governor, he's not imagining that. There's only one, Wes. So when the only black governor in America is among those excluded from a bipartisan White House tradition, people are going to look at that, and they should. You can say race wasn't the intent, fine. But leadership isn't just about intent, it's about impact. If you're president, you understand the optics, you understand history, you understand how actions land. And if you don't, that's a problem. Because this country has a history of exclusion, a long one. So when something like this happens, it doesn't feel neutral, it feels familiar, and it feels small. That's a word that keeps coming back to me. Small. Small leadership, small man, small vision, small politics. Turning a decade-long bipartisan tradition into a partisan event isn't bold, it's not strong, it's not strategic genius, it's petty as hell. It's a loyalty filter, and that weakens the office. The National Governors Association even said they won't recognize this as an official NGA event. No NGA resources will support it. That's not normal. That tells you this isn't business as usual. This is a break from tradition, a break from unity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When you start dividing basic governmental functions along party lines, you chip away at the foundation of how this country runs. Governors aren't just political opponents. They're partners in governing. You don't get disaster response done without them. You don't get infrastructure built without them. You don't get education policy implemented without them. This isn't cable news debate. This is real governance. So when a president decides that only Republican governors are welcome at the White House during an official conference weekend, it sends a message. And the message isn't unity. It's not maturity. It's not strength. It's, if you're not with me, you're out. That's campaign behavior, not presidential behavior. And yes, Americans are allowed to expect better. This office is supposed to be bigger than party. You can fight hard during elections. You can debate policies. You can draw clear lines. But once you're in the Oval Office, you represent all 50 states. Not just the ones that voted for you, not just the ones that praise you, all of them. If we normalize this, if we shrug and say that's just politics, then we're lowering the standard for what leadership looks like. And we should not, because the presidency isn't about dominance. It's about responsibility. It's about stewardship. It's about understanding that even when you disagree with someone deeply, you still respect the position they hold and the people they represent. When that respect disappears, the dignity of the office starts to fade. And once dignity fades, so does trust. This country is divided enough. This president has divided us enough. We don't need leadership that deepens the divide in spaces that are supposed to bridge the gap. The National Governors Association dinner wasn't a campaign rally. It was meant to celebrate shared service. Shared service. That's what was lost here. And when shared service becomes conditional on party affiliation, that's not just disappointing, it's revealing. It tells us what kind of leadership we're dealing with. And Americans have a right to look at it that way and say, this isn't good enough. Not because we're partisan, but because we understand that the presidency carries weight. And that weight is supposed to lift the country up, not narrow it down. If the White House becomes a space where only one party feels welcome, then it's no longer functioning as the people's house. It becomes something else. And that should concern every American, regardless of party. Because power should never feel selective. It should feel steady. And right now, this decision doesn't look steady at all. It looks petty, small. And the office of the President of the United States is supposed to be anything but small, but it is.